Hi, I'm Mark. Welcome back to Foothill Paint Fabrication. Well, we're going to get back on those doors for that 1950 Chevy truck and get them all the way to prime today, I promise. We had a part one, this will be part two, and we'll get these things knocked out. We got some extra repairs to do on the skin of this other one, and then we'll get these all the way into prime. So let's just jump right to it. But before we do, I'd like to remind you guys to send me pics of whatever project you guys are working on. I don't care what it is, bookshelf, I really don't care. Just send them to me. I'd love to see them. I'd like to post them at the end of the video so everybody else can see what all you guys are working on. So let's get right to this. So I'm on the other door, and here's another one of the wheels I like to use. It's the cup wheel. And I'll show you, it works pretty good on removing this paint. The good thing about this wheel is you can stand it up. You can get down in the grooves. And then you can use the very edge right here to remove the paint. So these are really versatile. This thing spins them up pretty fast. Make sure you got a face shield on, because these wires fly out of there really fast. They'll stick in your face. They get everywhere. But this is removing the paint really fast. You can see I got piles of it over here. I got a little bit left to go, and the dirty work's done, I think. Okay, I got all the crappy work done, the dirty work, so all that paint is stripped off here. I even did the covers. Goes right there. So let's flip this thing over and take a look at what we found on the other side. Now the other door was pretty nice. It didn't really have any major issues on the exterior, but this one, on the other hand, has a few. Okay, got it flipped over. Let's take a look what we got going on here. It looks like there's a repair right here. There's body filler and primer and stuff right here, and it looks like it's on top of the green, so it happened probably when the truck was green or maybe red. I just can't see it, but I think it happened when it was green, and then or in between one of the blue paint jobs. So what we got here is a low spot right here, you can kind of tell, and then it was a little lumpy right here, and then we've got a low spot right here. So this is probably the repair, and this is where it went back to the other material, the paint or whatever. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scuff this up right here, and I'm just going to lay some glazing putty over the top of this and block it back down and get that flattened out. We got a little I don't know, there was a chip that they painted blue over, so I got to sand that good and glaze that in, and we've got some paint chips here and there. I'm going to go ahead and hit while I've got some mixed up. But I'm filthy dirty from all that other work, so I'm going to call it a day, and we'll get that glazing putty on there first thing tomorrow. All right, so next day, first thing we want to do is identify the areas we're going to fill with the glazing, and I'm probably just going to cover this whole area just to be safe, and then let the sandpaper show me what needs to stay and what needs to go away. So we're going to rough up the area with some 80 grit, give us good adhesion for the glazing putty. We don't want to apply glazing putty over a super fine area, so I'm just going to kind of go over this whole thing. Just really quick, doesn't have to be perfect. Try to stay where I'm just going to put the glaze, and then any low spots, like here, I can see that it's not really hitting. I don't know if you guys can tell that. So I'm just going to take, and I'll make sure I scuff that up real good by hand. Just some 80 grit on the edge with my thumb. And then I'll just kind of go over the whole area. And then I've got, remember I had that chip right there, so I want to get down inside that real good. And then we've got some chips over here. I just want to kind of go over and find the rest of them. And we're going to blow this off and mix up some glazing putty. Okay, I got some mixed up here. I'm going to go ahead and do these chips right off the bat. So I don't forget them. Just like the body filler, you don't want to just lay it on there. You want to make sure you push it in nice and deep. Okay, so we're going to put the material down in the areas I think are low. Then I'm going to lay over the whole thing. And what that does, it ensures that, that I'm getting the material where I want it, because it will build up thicker, especially this material's cold. It's pretty cool in the shop right now. So this area right here I think is low. So I'm going to go just like that and hit those two areas for sure. That way when I lay over the top, that material is already on there, and then I'll just skim over the top, and we'll try to cover this whole area nice and even, and then we'll block that back out. See, and then I just go over those areas, and they've already got a coat on them. And then I'll go both directions. And if you, I don't know if you can tell on camera, this stuff is so creamy, it lays down really easy. So it allows you to lay down a super thin coat and flatten it out really nice. Now, it's pretty cold this morning. This stuff's a lot thicker. If this was summertime, this stuff is almost runny. So you got to be careful with it. So now it's pretty glossy. I can look down there. I don't see any low spots or anything. I'm going to tend to stop right there, but I have a hard time doing that because I always think I need to do a little bit more. But I am going to stop. I promise. I'm going to stop right here. And that's it. We're just going to let that set up. I'm going to put it out in the sun and let it warm up. That'll speed up the cure time, and then we'll be ready to sand. All right, we got it back in the shop. This glazing putty is hard as a rock. It's nice and set up. So the mistake you'll do, and I've done in the past, is use too small a block when I'm trying to smooth something out like this. You recall there's a lot going on here, so we want to make sure we get this nice and flat and smooth. So I just put a new fresh piece of 80 grit on my longboard here. But before I use that, I'm going to use this kind of worn out piece of 80 on the shorter block, and I'm not trying to flatten anything out. What I'm just trying to do is break this open a little bit, because when you guys probably notice when you first start sanding body filler or glazing or anything, it's kind of sticky and it tends to clog up your sandpaper. So instead of clogging up the fresh sandpaper, I mean, I've got my wire brush that I always use. I'll just go over this lightly and kind of dust it up and knock the high parts off and get some of that stickiness off there. And dust it up a little bit. And I don't have to worry about clogging up this old worn out piece. It's sanded pretty good. We'll just kind of rub that around a little bit. and we can see what kind of job I did here. So you can see I laid it down pretty smooth, just that quick sanding, kind of really flattened it out pretty good. A little low spot there, some ridges and stuff. So now we're ready to move on to the longer board. And what I want to do with this is, we jump back on this side, I want to lightly go over this and not push too hard. If you push too hard, you'll just bend the sheet metal, and then on this radius it's not that big a deal because it's pretty hard to bend that. But if you're really bearing down, you can bend the sheet metal as you're sanding, and then when it relaxes, then it's not smooth, it's not flat. So you have to just use fresher sandpaper, light pressure, and just more action. Whoop. So you see right there, we're already coming into some of the blues already starting to show in a high spot, and these two low spots are, still low. So I'm going to switch sides here. I got it on one of my less sturdy racks here, so it's kind of rocking back and forth. But let's see if we can't get this thing sweetened up real quick here. Okay, let's stop right there for a sec. So as you can see, some of the blue, and you can see some of the other lines in there, and we've got a little low spot here, and this low spot's starting to come out right here. So let me slide this thing around a little bit. I'm kind of jiggling outside of the camera lens there, and then we'll finish this up. So with a fresh piece of 80, I mean, this stuff cuts really fast. This glaze sands really easily. So I'm not putting much pressure at all. I'm just kind of letting it run on there and just sanding. And I don't care if we get into the blue a little bit, there's plenty of paint material on this vehicle to help us flatten this area out. So we're looking excellent right along here. Got a little low spot there, I'm sure I can get out. So that's looking really good right there. Still got a little low spot here. I work this side, I'll work this side now. And it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to get this out. Now I could gouge down through this paint a lot more, but I can tell that it's not even getting close. Now if it was kind of small, I would keep going and try to get that out. But if I chase it, and you'll hear me say that a lot, you start chasing a dent or a low spot, high spot, what you do is you keep trying to work that so much to try to get that sanded out that you end up just putting a large low spot in there. Instead of a small low spot, you end up just making it really big. You know, I'll push it all the way out to here, trying to get that down, and that's chasing it. You don't want to do that. You want to take your time and realize, hey, you know what? I need to add a little more filler. I need to add a little more primer. And we could have done this with primer, but this glazing, catalyzed glazing putty is a lot faster. No gun to clean, no wait time. You wait for it to set, and then you start sanding on it. Whereas, you know, if I put, 2 coats of heavy build primer on here, then it's got to sit overnight, and then I can sand it. And then if it's low like this again, then I got to go through the whole process. So that's why I like to use this putty. It sands super well, and it puts a really nice finish. I'm sanding with 80 grit, and this feels smooth to me. So I'm going to work these other dents off camera. We'll work this down here a little bit. And then we'll see if there's any other areas we need to fill, and then we'll scuff this up, get a little more filler on here, and get it finalized. Okay, it's all set up, so we're ready to go. Just going to use a little bit of worn out 80 to break it open like I did on the other, and then we'll hit it with the longboard. Okay, we take a look at it real quick. We're almost there. Still a little bit low there, but I'm quite confident I can sand that out. And when I laid this down, I came out a little bit farther because I wanted to make sure that transition was nice and smooth. And it was already roughed up with 80, so it was no big deal. If I sanded it all off, fine, but if I needed it, it was there. And I came up here a little bit farther. I was just pulled up too far, so I'll sand this out as well. Okay, we got it roughed down really nicely with the 80. It feels really good. As you can see here, we've got a fairly big area that we filled. We're actually, the original work, I'm into the original body filler right here and right here, a little bit right there, and just a little bit of metal just starting to show. So we know it flattened out really nice. If that continued to grow, I would have had to tap that down a little bit and then refill. But we're feeling really good now. Should get this old repair smoother than it was. I'm sure it was fine, but it had some waves in it. Obviously, a fairly large low spot on each side of it that would have showed in the clear. So once we polish it up real nice. So that's at 80. I'm just going to take the 240 real quick and just smooth some of these sand scratches out and sweeten this up a little bit so the primer doesn't have to work so hard. Okay, it's coming together really nice. Now when I run my hand over it, it feels nice and smooth. There's no waves in it or anything, but I can feel the texture difference. I've got old body filler here, I've got primer, I got some metal showing, I got my glazing, I got paint and sealers and stuff, and some sand scratches. So you can definitely feel that, but I don't feel any waves or anything. So we'll get a couple of good wet coats of primer on here, polyester primer. And then we're going to go ahead and dry guide coat this with some black and then block it out and see how we did. But this is about ready. So all we have to do is finish up a little bit of work on this door, and we'll figure out how we're going to hang these and get them primed. Okay, finally got them all prepped, scrubbed, sanded. I used Scotch-Brite pad in all the nooks and crannies. So these things are ready for some primer. That spot right there is a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be, but that's often the case. You think it's just a small area, and then the more you block it out, it grows bigger and bigger. So I've got them hung from the ceiling. I got a piece of pipe up here. I've got some eyelets screwed into the rafters. I had those for years up there, and they come in really handy. Let me show you how I hung these things. Now normally I'd put them on my door rack, but I need to paint both sides very thoroughly, and the door rack doesn't help with that. So what I did was, let me get an angle on one of these here. So what I did was just take a piece of rebar, and I bent it into like a fish hook, and then just hook some wire on it and hooked. So now it's hooked up underneath there where I don't need to paint, and then it swings away so I can paint all the way around it. So it should work out good. It can handle the weight of the doors, and we're about ready to mix up some primer. I've already blown them off, tacked them off. vacuumed out the inside. If you try to blow out the insides, that stuff just blows around in a circle. So I always kind of bang on it, shake it down to the bottom, get a little vacuum cleaner out and vacuum that stuff out, and then blow it out again and get the lightweight stuff out. So these are ready to go. I'm going to mix up some polyester primer and let's get some priming done. Okay, the gun's over, the strainer's finishing draining off into the cup. So you guys have seen me do this plenty of times before. I'm going to go ahead and put a full wet coat over all the sides, everything, and then I'll go back once that flashes off. And all the areas I know, like around the handles and some of this area down here where we've got a lot of different layers of paint to take care of, it's going to get at least 2, maybe 3 coats where we feather down around the corner, around the edge there. I'll make sure I double coat that so we can feather that in real nice. And then if anything else pops up, let's say I put a good wet coat over this and it flashes off and I can see it and it doesn't look like a nice flat even film, then I'll go ahead and put another coat over that as well. Then later when we go to block it out and use some dry guide coat, I know there's enough material there to take care of whatever problem just showed up with me. So I'm going to put my respirator on and we'll get to spraying. Okay, we got one good wet coat on everything. I went considerably heavier on the exterior skin for obvious reasons. We want to make sure that's perfect. The interior, just put a medium coat on it, and I just got just enough left in the gun to hit around the door handles and a little bit down where we had to put that glazing putty. So I think I mixed up just enough. Probably a little bit more would have been nice, but you know, it's kind of guesswork. So the panels, the interior door panels here, they look great. If I look at an angle here, the solvent hasn't flashed off yet, and they're pretty shiny, and they look great. So they're just going to get a super light sanding before we put the black on them. So I don't need a lot of build there. Now the other side, once we block them out, we're probably going to have to spot prime and do some other work. So I'm going to have to mix up some more primer anyway. So if anything shows up that I need to get more primer on, we'll just do it later. So I'm going to go ahead and let this flash off. I'm going to spray what's left in the gun on these little bad areas that I wanted to get a little more build, and we'll clean the gun and we'll be just about done. Okay, the air is clear and the gun is clean. Doors look really good. I got 2 or 3 good wet coats right where we had those feathered out areas and on the bottom. Same thing for this one. And I gazed down the side of the doors after I'd shot them with that first coat, and before the solvent would flashed off, it's still really glossy. So kind of look for any waves or anything. It looked all really nice. So we got everything covered with a good coat. The inside not quite as heavy, but everything came out really nice. Our repairs down there look good. You're never even going to see any of that. There's a strip and a weather strip that goes down there, but it all looks good. The jambs came out really nice. All that extra little bit of work really comes in handy, and the panels look excellent. So they're going to come out really nice when the truck's all done. And I even remembered at the last minute to shoot the 2 panels. I kind of forgot about them. I grabbed them, got them sanded up and primed as well. So things are looking really good. Next step for these will be some more blocking and then some dry guide coat. Okay, we got quite a bit done in just a couple of days. These doors are looking really good. Once the patch panels went in the bottom, it allowed me just to put my foot on the gas and really bust through these in just a couple of days. Really, really happy with the way they're turning out. Thanks for joining me here at Foothill Paint and Fabrication. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. Subscribe, I need the support. And hit that like button, it really helps out the channel, helps support me quite a bit. And mash that bell icon so you get notifications every time I release a new video. And we'll see you on the next one.